Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership podcast with ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. This show was designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in a diverse setting.
This is another night of the Impact of Educational Leadership. This is episode 32. I'm your host, ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. Tonight's panelists are Bill Betzen, Buddy Thornton, and Delna, Bryan. First, let me tell you a little bit about Bill Betzen. Bill Betzen is a retired teacher and social worker and a great-grandfather after graduating from the University of Dallas. He spent 17 years in child abuse investigations while finishing his master's in the science of social work. He then worked 11 years in open adoption work with Lutheran and Catholic agencies before joining his wife teaching in Dallas ISD. He taught computer applications at Quintanilla Middle School for 11 years. During that time, he helped start the School Time Capsule Project. He is now a full-time volunteer for the School Time Capsule Postmaster while remaining active on other social issues. Next, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Buddy Thornton, Bachelor of Science in Allied Health Sciences, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. MA in Human Services Counseling and Executive Leadership, Liberty University. Doctoral learner, completing his dissertation at Grand Canyon University. Branding as a positive social change agent through effective coaching and mentoring focused on education and family dynamics. Also, he's a board member of Parent File and board member of Broken and Stealing Foundation. Next we have on the panel is the Honorable Delna Bryan. She's an educational advocate, now in her 30th year in teaching and educational consulting as an executive member of the National Education Association for Educators and Paraprofessionals in the United States of America. And she chairs for the Political Action Committee, PAC for short, Teachers Affairs for NEA, Dallas, Texas. She serves on two committees, the Eulalie Carter International Scholarships Committee for Delta Kappa Gamma and oversight for the Human Resources Committee. She also has a bachelor's from Anderson University, a master's, two masters, one from the Honorable Southern Mississippi, Hattiesburg, and also a master's from Granada, Spain. She is becoming the who's who's among American teachers. Tonight's topic, what do parents need to know about coronavirus, COVID-19 for short? As community conversations, coronavirus disease 2019 is increasing, and many concerns and worries becoming the norm with family and friends getting ill with the COVID-19 disease. Parents, family members, school staff, and other trusted adults can play an important role in helping children make sense of what they hear in the media and minimize the fear. CDC has created guidance to help adults have conversations with children about this COVID-19 and the ways they can avoid getting and spreading this disease. Tonight, first I want to pull from Mr. Bill Betzen. Mr. Bill Betzen, sir, my question is for you.
Yeah.
How do we, absolutely, we're so glad to have you here with us this evening. So my question for you, sir, is how do we mitigate or make less severe the effects of home confinement on our children during this coronavirus outbreak?
Hopefully, this time at home with family will actually be a very positive time. It gives parents and children probably more time together than they have had possibly in their entire lives since infancy. And that is good, hopefully. It is a full-time job keeping up with the information on COVID-19. I have always been referring people to the DallasISD.org COVID-19 website, where they are collecting information and constantly updating it. And I went to that website tonight just to once again review what was online. And unfortunately, I found something that apparently had not been updated. In their cautions, they mentioned that children should stay away from people who are sick. We now know that people who are with no symptoms are actually helping to spread the disease. So it really boils down to extending that to say they should stay away from people who are not family. And they should maintain that 6-foot difference everywhere, because you do not know who has the disease. And so I've actually written DISD recommending they update their website about the fact that being asymptomatic is apparently a major cause of the spread of the disease. And we've constantly got to watch these sort of things. So it is a challenge for parents to stay up to date with what's happening in this outbreak. There are certain things that are remaining true. What the CDC is recommending, you can go by that, and that's probably better to go to that source when you're looking for information. Back to the Dallas ISD pages. Those pages are linked to 6 videos that parents can watch with children explaining the coronavirus. I looked at the videos this evening. They are 4 different ages. I would recommend them. Watch them first and then watch them with your children. It is a very good idea. And that's all on the DISD website under Resources for Parents. And I really recommend when you're with your kids, go out and walk in the neighborhood. That's just about the only place we can safely go in this day and age, as long as you keep your distance from the neighbors and talk from a distance. Beyond that, normal good practices such as reading books with your child and being available for any questions they may have is priceless. Hopefully this will be a valuable time that parents will eventually look back on with fond memories.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Betzen. And I like the way you point out walking in the park, but of course we want to focus on implementing the social distancing. And we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know how long this epidemic is going to run its course, but it has to run its course, and we don't know how many ways it's going to run its course. But let's be clear about something. First of all, so CDC is Centers for Disease and Control, I believe. But let's be clear about something here with something like this COVID-19. There is first the peak, and then there's the whole epidemic. Those are 2 different situations. Those are 2 different bell curves, okay? Now, when we're talking bell curves, we're talking statistics. So we really haven't seen the onset of this disease spread as of yet, right? So we hadn't seen it subside as of yet, right? So a large group is still susceptible, a large population is still susceptible to this outbreak, this disease. So this is why social distancing is working. It's a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool for effective treatments to stop the increased spread of this coronavirus, all right? And now, it's been dubbed a few different names. We're not going to go off into that, but we do know that it is highly contagious. There are some symptoms that we're going to talk about tonight, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Again, I don't want to take anything away from this panel that I have here tonight, because there's a wealth of information that is here tonight. And again, I don't want to take away from it. So let me go to my next panelist, please. Mr. Buddy Thornton, my next question is for you. Sir, what are some tools that parent committees can work together to bridge the needs of students with school requirements to help safeguard family and social interactions during this pandemic episode?
Well, I think it's really a two-tiered approach that is necessary, Isaiah. Number one, parents themselves need to be educated about what happens when they increase the interaction time between themselves and their children, something that has not happened in this country for decades. The average parent spends about 35 to 37 minutes a day with their children, and we've kind of blown that dynamic completely out of the water right now. When you're spending hours and hours and hours with your children, you become the sole impact model in their world. So you have to understand, first of all, how to model behavior so that you don't create a worse situation being at home than being somewhere else. One of the biggest impacts that we've seen here in Arizona, and I understand it's pretty much widespread, is the impact irrational fear has. The parents need to become well enough educated about the disease process in general and COVID-19 in particular so that they don't have a large amount of irrational fear that they are modeling to their children, because their children, being very immature, very young, they have no filter. So they're going to mimic that irrational fear, and given they don't control their hormones and their responses very well, it's going to get out of control rapidly. So number one, parents need to spend time either doing research themselves or in some type of a support group mentality, even if it's over the online or however they want to interact. They need to get together and understand, let's have accurate information about what is relevant right now, and how do we model no fear or very little fear, rational fear, as opposed to that irrational fear. That's probably the number one thing. And the schools need to emphasize that irrational fear can be damaging in the long run, whereas the disease can be damaging in the short run. So you need to understand the impact of both. And schools need to emphasize, let's teach the parents. Let's make sure the parents understand that they, through that extension, become our advocates, our teaching advocates, and they're the ones who are directly going to impact their children's lives. So safeguarding that social interaction starts with removing irrational fear. And then you can expand that. Once you get beyond irrational fear, then you can create scenarios where you can have some mentorship going on, some sharing of information. You can challenge your brighter students to socially engage online with their peers or their classmates and help those who are maybe a little behind or a little slower than they are in a subject, in exchange for a little tit-for-tat action where they may have a subject they're not very good in, so they can get mentoring from somebody else. And this needs to be cyclical. The major benefit that's going to be found in this is that the parents are going to find out that by engaging with their children and building a scenario where their children feel like they're actually an active part of the education process, and they can see their parents' eyes just light up with excitement when their kids are doing what they're doing, it's going to re-energize the children so that when they come out of this, the dynamic in the schools themselves is going to be hopefully completely different and a lot more energized than it had been going into this pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. I love the way you put that together. And, it lined it up to me. There was a very strict alignment to what Mr. Bill Betzen said. This is a guy, Mr. Bill Betzen is a guy who's coming from almost 2 decades of experience in child abuse. And that's one of the things that we've seen that has increased as this pandemic has been going on, this outbreak has been going on, and because of the fear. So things are becoming a little bit out of control as the time progresses, because there are little to no social support groups for those families. And so that's one thing that we need to be looking into, those social support groups, people that have qualified peer-reviewed research, people that know what they're talking about, experts in that field. And this is why we want to kind of ask some questions here to Ms. Delna Bryan here. Ms. Bryan, we are so honored to have you back on this podcast again. The last one that you did was just so revolutionary, and it just we're getting feedback from it constantly. So we are just so pleased to have you here again. My question to you tonight is this: what concerns should the public monitor because of the prolonged school closure and home confinement during a disease outbreak like this that could have negative effects on our children physically and mental health?
When you talk about the public, I would like to primarily address neighbors. I would like to address extended families, people who would know these students and observe a difference in their behavior. I'd ask them to pay attention to their daily behavior. Are they depressed? Are they worried? Are they anxious? I am teaching these students online. I interact with some. I hear their voices. I know them. So I am aware that there might be something going on in their surroundings where they're isolated. We have a conversation. I would know whether they're playing more video games, what are they doing, or they might stop talking. They're no longer asking questions. My students tend to socialize with me as an older family member. I can talk to them about what they're reading, and I can pick up whether it's a negative piece of literature. I can interact with them as they verbalize their feelings. I'd ask those friends of the family, those neighbors that come in contact with them, they're the public, to monitor the students and get them interacting with them. They might have been doing work with them at home. They would know the quality work that they got before they got home and were isolated. Notice the kind of work that they're getting out of them. When they ask you questions, answer candidly, answer truthfully to the best of your ability. Explain to them, this is what you have read, this is what you have internalized, this is what you understand. One thing you cannot do is fool a child. They know whether you're genuine or not. Observe them congregating wherever they might be. They can't do that anymore. They can't go to the park. They're no longer going to school on a school bus to talk to their friends. So they're going to come to you, that adult, to ask the question, whether it's online or whether it's an immediate older person in the home, a neighbor next door. I would encourage every person that this young person comes in contact with to answer all their questions and allay their fears. Let them know. We really don't know more than this is a high transmission virus. We have answers from the Center of Disease Control in Atlanta. We have answers from the World Health Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. We have answers every day from someone that is trying to update what is going on. We do know that they're high-risk place or low-risk place. We do know that this virus is fatal. when you come in contact with the students about the outbreak of this disease, know that you are working with them mentally to allay their fears, and you are also going to help if you are interacting with them at home as a parent, an older person in the home. You might have them do a project, a physical, manual project, something that will get them moving. You don't want them just vegetating. You want to engage the whole child. That would be very, very instrumental in getting them up to par for when we go back to school.
I totally agree. I totally agree, because you are listening to someone that has been teaching, not only teaching, but successfully teaching for 30 plus years. Not only in Dallas ISD or Texas, but she has taught all over the world. She's an international teacher. And so with that being said, what I'm hearing, and with my colleagues and the people that I'm talking to, people of the panel and listeners, is that some students, and it's hard to believe, but I'm going to say it, some people are saying some students don't even care, right? But then they're saying the ones that do care, they are confused. You know, so I think they're all confused, and this confusion has made it hard to appreciate these different facts, these factors. One of the factors is countermeasures for scaling down this virus. Next question I want to bring to Mr. Buddy Thornton. Delna, Bryan, thank you so much for the information that you're giving us. Like I said before, people are going to go back and study, and they're going to go back and analyze, and it's going to help so many people. We can't even count how many people is going to be helped by what you just said. So we thank you. Mr. Thornton, my next question is for you, sir. What tools will leadership need to acquire in preserving mental health as they navigate the uncertainties that the recent stressful disruptions in routine schooling have caused? That's my question, sir.
One of the biggest things when you wrote and sent me this question, one of the biggest things I did was I just did a little bit of research, and there were so many ways I could approach the answer to this question, but I decided to focus on the one thing that leadership can control above all other things, and that is their attitude toward the past and how it affects the future. Leaders have three things they can do. Number one, they can decide mentally that they are not going to judge the experience of another person. They do that in two ways. Number one, they have to be able to be really, really attuned to perspective taking. They have to be able to really dive deep into the experience someone else has had. They have to be willing to actively listen and take the time to give honor to whatever experience someone is telling them about. If a student is saying that they lost someone to the virus, or they combated a very, very anxious home style, and they had a lot of irrational fear to overcome, the worst thing that an administrator or a leader, an honored teacher could do is belittle their experience. You have to honor their experience by putting yourself in their shoes and saying, I really would like you to tell me more about how your feelings are. What exactly did you experience, so that I can understand how you've been affected by this. And then you turn that around, and the leader has to also use perspective making. You need to make a perspective. You need to honestly and very vocally interject that you understand there's been an impact to every human being on the planet because of this situation, and you want to honor that by your actions and the way you don't judge that someone else maybe didn't handle the virus very well. Maybe they handled it very well, but they looked down on other people. You have to model not judging. You have to do appropriate perspective taking of what's happening and what happened in the lives of the people around you. And then you have to model a non-judgmental approach to how do we make the future come together for all of us. It can't just be about one person. It can't just be about expectations. It has to be real. It has to be felt. It has to be projected the right way. So if leadership wants to come out of this clean, they need to practice perspective taking, and they need to practice perspective making.
Thank you for that response. And as you can hear, the listeners, as you can hear the passion from each and every one of these panelists, it is so amazing, the feelings that you are projecting to the audience. Ms. Bryan, she had mentioned so much, and I felt so honored to have her here speaking, because you can hear the experience exuding from her and from Mr. Bill Betzen, and you too, Mr. Thornton. My next question goes to Mr. Bill Betzen. What are some goals and directions we should expect from governmental and community leadership moving forward?
You don't give me any easy questions, do you? That is a mouthful. But I just want to mention back about Miss Delna, Bryan, and Buddy. They provoked all kinds of thoughts. Like Delna made me realize, how are our school counselors being used? Are they being used, and are they able to intervene when we detect troubling signs? And then what Buddy described, the mindset he described, reminded me of the mindset we had to use in child abuse investigations. I mean, he was right on target. But as to what the government and community leadership should do, first thing is honesty and accuracy in all public statements. And the public statements disproportionately need to be coming from those who are medical professionals and scientists, because they are the ones that we need to see the most of at this point in time, because they have the technical answers to the technical questions that are really dominant for most people right now. And then we're working on a moving target, and something we said is true a month ago may not be true now, and we need to correct errors and omissions very rapidly and be very public about it and very transparent about it. This is not a time for secrecy. It could be deadly. We simply have to be honest. We make a mistake, we need to be honest, but hopefully we will constantly allow the truth to rise to the top so that children know it, parents know it, and they can have some comfort and security in knowing that truth. And again, from government and community leadership, they should constantly be modeling all the safety tips that are part of the social distancing toolkit so that we all remain safe from potential infection. That's probably, the modeling they do is probably some of the most valuable things they do for us in the public, is they've got to show us how to do the social distancing. We are in a scary time, and I really think the discussion we're having here this evening, it needs to continue bringing in more professionals from all kinds of places, because this needs to be a public discussion, just exactly like is happening here. And thank you, Isaiah, for making it possible.
Sir, we thank you, sir, for your experience and your insight. You know, one word that you mentioned that really stuck out and it really hit a place in me, and that was transparency. Although the U.S. population is becoming racially diverse than any time in history, in the history of this country, even researchers have said that they have documented this. But still, as yet, there are many disparities. And it makes you a bit emotional, but there are many ethnic disparities. in the provision of the usages of basic things like public leisure services, public parks, recreational programs. For example, African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians are less likely to use these public parks or these recreational programs or even positive youth development programs than whites or Caucasians are. So let me ask this next question to Delna Bryan. And Ms. Bryan, I want to ask you this question because, again, what's your experience? I want to see what you see through your lens. Okay, and so with that being said, can you foresee the government mobilizing existing resources to create a platform for gathering the best online educational courses about healthy lifestyles and psychosocial or mental support programs? And will they make it available for schools to choose from, to have a choice to choose from different programs? That's my question.
Okay. Can the government mobilize existing resources? I think they're going to have to mobilize existing resources double or triple time, because we are going to become dual citizens right away. Most of us are accustomed to a standard classroom, but our students are now in the digital, virtual age. Do we have enough internet connectivity? Do we have enough towers to be able to handle that mass level of internet that we will need for those students globally? As far as healthy lifestyles, some of our students are noticing being at home. They might have to change their diets. They are definitely going to have some people thinking about fasting, some people thinking about meditating, some people thinking about doing other things for this psychological and healthy lifestyle. So therefore, a study will have to be done by the government very fast to encompass all these changes that are going to be made in a few more years, maybe a few more months, at the speed of lightning. They're going to have to know how to study the brain. What happens to the brain in isolation? So we need more doctors studying this. I also foresee, when we talk about different lifestyles and different psychological support, new professions coming out of this pandemic. Our students have more time at home to do research on their laptops, on their computers. So they will be coming up with quite a few more questions that the government might have to answer, that they have available at their schools. A totally different platform. We do know that we have everything now in the digital age at our fingertips. We need to be prepared for that. We need to know that in order to have functioning people, we need to be prepared. We cannot be asleep. We need to be alert. It is important for us to be able to know what to answer, when to answer. I will ask that we not forget to pray for wisdom and knowledge each day in our respective fields to be available for our students when they come back to school after this pandemic. Thank you.
No, we thank you. We thank you. And with that being said, wow, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. This has been an amazing night. For those that's listening, this was another night of the Impact of Educational Leadership. This is episode 32. I'm your host, ID3 for Isaiah John III. Our panelists tonight were the Honorable Bill Betzen, Mr. Buddy Thornton, and Delna Bryan. Good night.
Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership podcast with ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. This show was designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in a diverse setting.